regardless in the war. The legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls. The spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest. The cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded. The teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, the world to you. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. And we are live. We are live. And being such, I do have to confirm that my microphone is working over here. Yes, I do see that. So let's get right into it. Do you want to have a skill that is marketable regardless of sector, city to city to city? You can travel wherever and not have to worry about being employable. Do you want to be paid handsomely for your efforts? Do you want to be seen as invaluable? Do you want to be like Thanos? You want to be inevitable? You want to be seen as a profit center, as a revenue center, as opposed to a cost center, ladies and gentlemen? Well, you want to learn how to sell. That is the skill. It is inevitable. It is invaluable. It is indispensable. You want to learn how to close. And if you don't understand what selling is, well, let me mention a couple of things. Number one, selling is the most highly paid, or I should say, the highest paid profession. I'll say that again, the highest paid profession out there. And if you don't understand the sphere within sales consists, okay, the sphere within which sales consists, you need to understand that sales involves everything about moving up and moving higher in your career. The president is a salesman to the country and to the outsiders. The CEO is a salesman to his organization and to the outsiders. The general is a salesman to his particular troops and also to the outside world. In other words, to move up, you need to be able to influence the people around you, and you need to be able to influence the outside world, because it is from the outside world that you get the contracts, you get the revenue, you get the trade deals, you get the concessions, you get the value. You get people's bank accounts to open up and for things to come in. So whether it's a non-business a nonprofit organization or a for-profit organization, a governmental organization or a non-governmental organization, whatever it may be, those whom bring value in, those whom bring revenue in, those whom are profit centers are indispensable and invaluable. Okay? My name is Ike. Welcome to this channel. And this is the channel where we talk about being better and doing better with a strong emphasis on doing. That means getting things done. And what are we getting done today? Today we are closing, ladies and gentlemen. We are learning how to close. And it is a recurring theme in this channel, that thing being selling. And today we have a special guest. We have a special guest, Aitwa, aka New Game. This is not the first time he's been on this channel. Go back and watch the other 2 interviews that pertain to sales. We've done at least 4 of these. Maybe this might be the 5th one or so. But the last time we talked about understanding the customer, okay? The 5 buying stages, the identification of the problem, the shopping, the decision, the purchase, and then the post-purchase behavior. Sure. Prior to that, we also talked about selling being about breaking down walls, bringing down barriers, and so on and so forth. So Aitwa is the president of American Heritage University, okay, and the head of admissions for the law school, amongst other things, okay, ladies and gentlemen. Again, he's no stranger to the channel. How are you doing today, Aitwa?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you once again for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Excellent. So let's get directly into this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get directly into this, and shout out to Young Swift in the house. Vis-a-vis your construct of sales being about taking down barriers, okay? How does closing play into that particular construct, okay? Is closing the last barrier that needs to be taken down, or how does that play into your construct of sales being about taking down walls?
Yeah, well, the closing process is often the most nerve-wracking process for me and most salespeople alike, because that's where all of the charisma that you've displayed throughout the process, all of the lies you've told, if you want to call it that, everything that you've said. I say lies because a lot of times in sales we have to amplify the truth a little bit and minimize the errors. This is where you're saying, I'm about to get this person to sign or this contract or give me this amount of money. So it's often the part that gets a little tricky, but it's the most important part, because this is where you get the bacon. This is where you, like you said at the introduction, this is where the bank account opens up and the money comes over to you, right? So, as far as it being a barrier, this is the part where you have to be extremely attentive to the little details, and you have to be extremely focused on being clear, because the closing is if there was anything that you weren't clear about, this is where you're going to be clear about it. Take an example of if you go back and watch our previous segments, we have the gentleman that wanted to upgrade his phone and eventually got upsold to something else. This is the part that you have to disclose. Okay, well, you're getting this phone, the other one's free. You still have to pay the taxes on both of them. Why? Because you got to pay tax. You got to give Uncle Sam his cut, right? So this is the part where you're saying, hey, this is the early termination. If you choose to change your mind, these are the penalties you're going to incur. These are the fees if you return it early. So this is the part where you're disclosing a lot of information that is not the fun stuff. The sexy stuff, we've already done that. This is the part that, hey, this is a 2-year commitment. This is an early termination of $400. These are taxes. Even though it's a free phone, you're paying $80 in taxes. This is where, you're using an opportunity, obviously, to upsell, right? But going through those disclosures, those are areas that it never feels old. So every time you're closing, you're like, I got to tell them it's 2 years. I can't hide that, right? So this is where all of your charisma becomes more of honesty and communications and transparency. And it requires a little bit of practice, because this is the make or break version of the sale. This is where all your hard work is about to pay off. So specifically, it is a barrier that you have to get over yourself. You're the biggest barrier at this point, because you've already done a good job. They started from folding their hands to putting their hands down. They were leaning back. Now they're leaning forward. Their hands are on the table. They're all in. So now this is where you reel in the fish. And it's one of the most, it's the part of the sale that requires a little bit more in-depth approach. But at the same time, our job here is to keep it simple.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Shout out to KS Rain in the house, and shout out to XX Fuddy, not XX, whatever that means. And presumably, I pronounced it in, or I was able to read it out in such a way that is satisfactory, let's say. Now, you mentioned attention to detail and so on and so forth, okay?
Right.
But I would like to ask you this. Is closing mainly okay? So the two things you mentioned attention to detail, and
Right.
then internally, you mentioned that you have to overcome certain barriers in yourself. You're the biggest barrier at this point. It never
Right.
feels old. It's kind of like, let's say, stage fright with no matter how great of a performer you are. If you're not feeling stage fright when you're going out there, that means there's something wrong. You're not
Right.
really ready, or you're not really into it. There's something you're not bringing your A game if you're not feeling some
Right.
stage fright. So I would like to ask, is closing, and by that I mean both buying and selling, right?
Mhm.
Is it mainly a logical decision, or is it an emotional decision, or what do you have to say about that?
Whew. There's a logical aspect of it, and there's an emotional aspect of it. Let me give you an example. Going back to my experience, I had an old lady that she wanted to get a phone. She had a very old phone, and her phone volume stopped working. And she says, "Well, I have insurance, and the insurance charges a $50 deductible, and they're going to send an old phone. And the phone that she had, they don't make it anymore." So I was able to sell her into the upgrade. And a part of me emotionally felt guilty because this lady wanted something really easy, even though I
Mm,
sold her a phone that was, in my opinion, easy. In my setup for her, I made it easy. A part of me felt guilty knowing that she's going to have a hard time making this adjustment. So
mm,
logically, you have to close the sale because here comes the big bucks. I mean, it's only logical, but I'm about to get this lady into this phone, and I know she's gonna have a hard time. The human part of you kind of kicks in, and you start feeling guilty. Do I really want to do this? Did I really make the best decision? But again, this is where we talked about the 5 stages of buying, and this is where the lady comes back and is having second thoughts. So I'm
mhm,
I'm kind of having the post sale aspect of it, and she's having the post purchase aspect of it. So this is where our worlds meet. So she comes back, and then I have to now go back into being the affirmer, the assurer, the nurturer, and say, "Let's have a seat, Miss Old Lady." And I sit down and I show her how to use the product. That's not always a rule because some customers, you sell to them, you never see them again, or you only
mhm,
hear from them when it's through a referral. But you'll have those. They'll come back, and then I show her, and then she leaves, and she's confident. And then at that time, I start feeling better about my decision. So it's a little bit of both. Now, there are some sales that I'm in there. There's no emotions. There's I would like to buy this phone. I've come here to buy this phone because I've been waiting for it. And that's common with iPhone customers, by the way. They come in and matter of fact, you can have a bad attitude on purpose and they'll buy the phone.
Yeah, I hear that about the Genius Bar, that sometimes it's not always the best customer service, and perhaps that's on purpose. Probably it works
Yep.
better. So you mentioned the emotions within.
Right.
Now, let's talk about the buying, because there's
Right.
two sides to that question. I talk about the selling, and then there's the buying. And perhaps we could dig into this a little bit more here about this emotional thing versus logical thing. Because when you're trying to convince somebody of selling, is it more of a, and I know that there's always a one side plus the other side, and then we're trying to talk about in generality here. Is it more the case that you're trying to convince them of an argument? You're trying to convince them that 2 plus 2 is indeed 4? Or are you just trying to push them over the edge emotionally? Right? As you said in the post purchase behavior thing, you said you
Mhm.
gave them confidence back. Let's say we take it back to the pre purchase thing. And is it a question of just boosting up their confidence, regardless of whether the argument makes sense or not? It doesn't really matter if the heated leather with the, or like there's that famous thing, Corinthian leather. There's no such thing as Corinthian leather, by the way. You may have heard of that one, right? But Corinthian leather or the whatever. It doesn't really matter. You're not buying it
Right.
because there's such a thing as Corinthian leather. You don't care about Corinthian leather. The
Right.
Corinthian aspect just gives you some kind of a feeling, right? So
Right.
how much of that how much do you see it being that kind of a confidence, emotional, let's just push them over the edge, versus giving them the arguments?
It's all about the pushing them over the edge, the giving them confidence, boosting how they're feeling, because um customers who feel good are going to buy. You know, if your customer is feeling good about himself, he's feeling good about you, he's bound to make a purchase, and he's bound to make a referral, because that emotional sting will last a long time. You know, they
Mm.
say if you have one angry customer, they'll piss off 10 other angry customers, because your emotions are poisonous, right? If you have a bad experience, you're going to say something poisonous about your experience. So a lot of it is really, the emotional boost and making them feel good. And when they feel good, they like you, and everything you say after that, they're sold. You could say, you know what, and even at that, I'll give you an example. I had a lady that, I went through the whole, her emotions were high, she's feeling good about herself, and I was going to sell her the phone, and I thought it was buy one get one free. And when they came down time to ring it up at the register, it wasn't buy one get one free. So I went to my manager. I said, "Look, I've already told her about." Nope. Manager says, "We're not budging. We have this other phone is buy one get one free." So I went back out to the sales floor, and I put my eyes down really low. I said, "You know what? I got some good news. But which you want? The good news or the bad news first?" She says, "Tell me the bad news first." I'm like, "The phones that you wanted to get, there is no buy one get one free. But to be honest, this other ones that are buy one get one free, they're actually better." She goes, "Oh, I trust you." I'm thinking, "Whew," right? Because I put her in a good mood. So at that point, I can say, "You know what? Don't buy the phones today. Come back next week. She'll leave, right? And I'll buy them."
Mm.
So I was able to get her to buy the other phones, and boy, was that a good decision. Not only did she take the what we call the BOGO, buy one get one free, she brought someone else that said, "Hey, there's a phone that you like. You've always liked that phone. Right now, he gave it to me, buy one get one free." So that automatically brought me more customers. So when you put your customer in a good mood, it sets you up and sets them up, even when things don't go your way. So if they're feeling good, and it just so happens that maybe the product is out of stock, or the last one they were going to buy was out, or there were some bugs in the program, or there was a missing PowerPoint slide somewhere, because they were in a good mood. Because the emotional mind is it's a very powerful zone to operate with anyone. Having them in that emotional state of mind, in the right emotional state of mind for your opportunity to sell or close the sale, you can use that to your advantage any way you want to.
Excellent. So we talked about barriers before, taking down barriers, and you talk about taking down the internal barrier of yourself. And then you're talking about making the customer excited, that
Right,
it is mainly about, and it really doesn't matter. Well, there are more complex sales than others, right?
right,
There
of
is
course.
a B2C customer, the business to customer sale. Then there's the B2B sale, business to business sale. And then there's certain kinds of sale where you're doing like a whole enterprise software sale. It involves the person who is signing the check. It involves the end user who's using the software. It involves all kinds of intermediaries and so on and so forth. Okay.
Right,
So it can be quite complex, but regardless of which particular stage you're in, and this is something that I think is key to understand, you may be in the stage where you're simply trying to get the secretary, the administrative assistant, the receptionist to get you a phone number.
that's
Okay.
right, that's right,
That is a sale. And then, no matter what, and no matter the kinds of the logical aspects, where you need to know the process. Okay. You need to understand that just by talking to the end user and by having a champion within the company doesn't mean that the purse strings are going to open, right?
right.
But you need to, each stage is still an emotional thing that needs to be done. So how do you get the customer excited? Is it a question about you being excited and projecting that? Because you mentioned that emotions are infectious, though you put it in the negative context, right? But
Right,
also, it is also true that it is infectious in a positive context. So if you come and be
of
like, hey, that kind of a thing,
right,
and it may
right,
not be hey that way, if you have hey within you, right?
right.
That it is kind of infectious, and you put people at ease and you can make them comfortable. Does that work?
It does. It does. And now I used I think I appreciate the additional insight you gave as far as B2B and different types of sales. And I start often at the consumer level, because that's where you gain some of your first selling experience, at least for
Hmm.
most people. But let me climb up to where I'm operating now at my level. And I'll give you an example of the sale that I'm actually working on right now. We are working on creating a certificate program to assist third world country instructors, and train them on how to be efficient in teaching online. Of course, the pandemic has created really this whole new opportunity for instructors to leave the classroom environment into the online environment. So there is a head person, and I've been selling to him the idea of, hey, get me 20, 30 of your instructors and I'll train them in my school. We'll give them a certificate of completion showing that they understand curriculum development in the online world. They understand how to interact in a virtual world, how to utilize the resources provided in the virtual world. And my first way of getting that emotional excitement going on, I actually had a 4-hour seminar today. I didn't charge him anything. I said, listen, bring your best. And I did a 4-hour seminar, and I gave them golden nuggets, but I didn't give them any, golden nugget openers, if that makes any sense. The nuggets was put in their hand, but how to use that nugget, that's going to be when you bring some dollars, because dollars make sense, right? So I got him so excited, and I gave my contact information, and all the instructors are hitting me up on my email. That was great. I want to know more. So the excitement is there. So now the excitement is there. I'm like this. Okay, so what you got for me, right? So, but bottom line is, I think your question specifically was how you do that by offering something that that it's not going to cost you anything. Okay. And sometimes that could be your time, but rather than looking at your time, or you're going to pay me for this time, you have to appear extremely patient, ready to listen, and your communication skills have to be on point. So he would send me a message, I would respond right away. He would say, oh, sorry about that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's no problem. So as far as he's concerned, I never seem to have a problem. I'm always ready to respond. When he speaks, I said, that's it. When he asks a question, no matter how minute the question is, I call it a great question, right? And that's a way of putting all these positive vibes in the car. Well, that's a fantastic question. In reality, if one of my staff asked me that question, I wouldn't even answer it, right? Because I'm like, have you heard of Google, right? So part of it is just saying, oh, everything is a great question. And to some degree, they are great questions, especially coming from me being the expert in what he needs me for, and him being the potential customer. So I'm the expert, but he's asking great questions that are great because they give me an opportunity to establish that positive, relationship. So how to do it is to acknowledge the potential. Now, were you asking that question from a buyer's perspective or a seller's perspective?
I'm asking how you transfer that emotion over, and you said that you need to give. Okay,
right.
You need to kind of acknowledge. First, you also mentioned that you need to appear competent and responsive, right?
Right.
You immediately answer the questions and so on and so forth. You'd be surprised how much people will just give you, right? If you have established in the past that you are responsive. They have a question, they have a burning need, they're in the middle of the freeway, they're driving to the job site, they have a question, they pick up the phone, and you are that guy that answers.
Right.
They don't want to have to go test out the field to find some other guy that possibly answers, right? When the time comes for that $50,000 contract, they're going to pick up and they're going to call you, right? So yes, I was asking from the seller's perspective how you transfer that emotion over, and I think that you did a pretty good job with answering that. And there's something else that's on the chat right now, and shout out to Sandman, shout out to Young Swift in the house. Young Swift talks about finessing, and this one I'll address, okay? With the finessing aspect, which is you're BSing, you're lying, and this is why the previous question was about, is it an emotional thing or a logical thing? If you're telling somebody 2 + 2 is 5, you're lying, okay? If you say that's a great question, that is very different. You know what I mean? That is very different. So the whole people feel like, oh, well, you saying, oh, it's a great question, when otherwise, if somebody that did not have a potential purse, that you're trying to get into, you would not say it was a great question. People will say, oh, well, isn't that finessing and so on and so forth? Look, there is an understanding. In other words, the other human being across the room from you understands that that's not how you talk to your kids at home. They understand that that's not how you talk to your secretary. It is understood. In other words, I like to use the Trump from time to time. When Trump says, hey, it's amazing, everybody knows it, you're all wonderful. If I tell you, hey, Young Swift, you come into Young Swift is coming into the cocktail party. I'm like, hey, Young Swift, you are an amazing young man. You are awesome. This is great. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows Young Swift is great, right? Hey, You know, this is not how I am every day, all day, but
Right.
still you appreciate the effort. We
Right.
understand it's social organisms. We know that it is an emotional boost that needs to happen. And it's not a question of 2 + 2 = 4. And Young Swift says, ah, I see. Yes, yes, yes. It is an emotional thing. It is called, I forget the word now. Let's just call it boosterism or something like that. And it is understood that somebody is going to be doing that. And it's not a question of 2 + 2 = 4. Now, what are the biggest impediments? And I know that you already mentioned that it is you, right? And that every time it is a new process when you're trying to close the sale. And you can think about it, regardless of whatever it is, when you're trying to ask someone for something, right? That is where there is some kind of an impediment, right? But other than that, from your vast experience, B2B, B2C, so on and so forth, whatever it may be, what are some of the impediments, the biggest impediments to closing in particular? How do people step on their foot and stumble in that particular aspect of the deal?
That's in my training and experience, where people stumble with the selling is not knowing and understanding the fine print. And I'll explain it this way. So,
Mm,
um, the fine print meaning that let's take a vehicle purchase. That moment that you've gone through the emotions, you're happy about the car, and you sit in the finance room and the finance guy is explaining the terms to you. They don't make sense. He's telling you that your first, you're going to skip this month and then your taxes and DMV fees, and he starts disclosing this stuff for you. That's where people often blow the sale because they didn't carry the same charisma. So
mm,
so
mm,
let me then shift it to what my experience was. So I've got this lady that came in and she's getting 5 cell phones for her husband and her 3 children. That's at the time, that's an incredible sale. That's the kind of sale you can brag about for a couple of days.
mm,
And but when it was time to explain the contract to her, I said, okay, listen, this is a 2-year contract. Okay, it's 2 years. And the only reason it's a 2-year contract, we want to make sure that we can give you this price that we're giving you for 2 years. Okay. If you leave, though, we have to charge you because we're a company, right? We have to have early termination fees. I'm maintaining the same charisma. I'm maintaining the same confidence. But when I was training some of my reps, they would say, right here is this is your
ah,
your early termination. I mean,
don't turn into a robot, in other
yeah,
words.
yeah,
So
just
the same energy that you came in with, and you're like, that's a great question. Say, ha, ha,
right.
ha, ha, slap on the back. When it
Absolutely.
comes to the fine print,
That
don't
same
get
energy.
all technical with it. Just continue and explain like a real human being, right?
That's right. That's right. And and
Hmm.
and to add a little bit more to that, and make jokes, and then you would say, I mean, like if you cancel the termination, I'm gonna have to. I mean, after this great service that I gave you, you're gonna offend me if you came in here to cancel, lady. And oh no, and they would laugh. Oh, I would never do that. You're such a nice gentleman. Oh, I know. But hey, on all seriousness, though, if you do need to cancel it, you do have 2 weeks to do that. So I make them feel at ease, but it's never the confidence has to get you. And I think we talked about this. Avoid ums and uhs and blank stares especially when you're closing. So you say, I think that let me check with some. No, 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 no. If you don't know something, it's best to say, this is new in the paperwork. You know what? I want to make sure that you leave here without any questions. So give me a moment to check that up, right? As opposed to, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. And then you're triggering that negative emotion that's always there in the buying process, and you're letting it speak again. Because throughout the whole time you've been selling, you've been killing them with kindness, right? And now you one little bad move, and then that voice inside their head gets loud, and they start having second thoughts. And you might walk out the back and come back in. And they go, "Oh, you know what? It's fine. You know what? You know what? Maybe this is just a sign. Maybe I was, And that's where you lose it. So just keep that same energy. And if the customer asks you a question that you cannot answer, think about the most charismatic way to respond to it and say, you know what? That's another good question that you're asking, and that's new because I think this document's a new one. I'm gonna make sure of that for you. But before I check that for you, is there anything else? We just gonna go through these other things as opposed to stopping at items 1 through 13. You get to number 4 and you're stuck, and now you're gonna be extremely uncomfortable going through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on and so forth. But if you say, okay, this is a good one, let's just highlight this one over here because there's some other good stuff here that we need to go over. This is all the good stuff. and then you go through these other fun stuff, and then when they sign and initial everything, you say, okay, now just to make sure, because you brought up a really good question, here goes the pumping them with good stuff. This is a great question you bring up, a great concern. It looks like you're a sharp guy that does your homework. I want to make sure you leave here even sharper, right? And then you walk over to the back, and then your manager says, oh, maybe you even know the answer, but you're just trying to make sure that it doesn't stop you from getting through the other initials, because you never know. It's better to go to the back trying to answer two initials where two initials out of 13 have been initialed, versus you stopped at number 6, and then number 7 and 9, they have more questions. And then you're going to the back, and then that process starts to wear the customer down, and your perfume or your cologne starts to wear off, if that makes sense.
100%. You know what? And to Young Swift talking about the finessing, yes, that was some more finessing when he said, "You're a smart guy, and I want to make sure you leave here even smarter." Right?
That's right.
Like the person, and I'm listening. I'm sitting there listening. I'm not thinking, "Oh, this person is lying to me. How dare he lie to me?" We are mammals. We understand the subtleties of communication, whether it be verbal or nonverbal, or this kind of pumping someone up in that particular regard. Now, so to kind of reiterate the answer to the question, to just make sure I understand it, it's about keeping that same energy with which you brought down the barrier to begin with.
Right.
Okay. Don't go ahead and then in the closing process, in the fine print, and well, how would this product get delivered? What if X happens? What if Y happens? How does this? Don't get all weird and technical and start reading, and then don't go and keep the energy, keep the charisma, keep the flow going. Even though you may be getting a little hot under the collar, right? But that's where and you mentioned something earlier. Let me just go ahead and ask this now. How important is role playing and practicing in this, especially the closing? Okay,
It is.
how
It is
important is it?
everything. It is everything. In fact, in my training, we used to do. I used to do role playing. I would have two of the reps to say, "Okay, you're the seller and you're the customer. Go." And then, and when you get through that, because what happens, you want to be familiar with that discomfort. You want to be familiar with that process, and then you get correction and you get direction on how to fix it, how to address it. And then when you're in that real life situation, like I just rightfully said, you get that warmth under the collar, like, oh God. But you've been through that. So you know that all you need to do is stay calm and run through all the initials, and then go to the back, get a drink of water, take a deep breath, and come back out and say, and then come back with your hands like this, say, I have got that figured out for you. I think we're all good to go, right? And then, because again, that goes back to body language. Coming out of the back with your shoulders slumped, the customer's going to read that a lot faster than you can imagine.
100. You know what? That's really good. And if I may just kind of mention something here tangentially about another very famous topic in this channel, which is about master your subjective consciousness, which is understanding your system, understanding how it works,
Right.
what are the inputs you need to get the outputs, so on and so forth. You mentioned, okay, becoming familiar with the discomfort, okay? And that's what all that master your subjective consciousness is about, right? So you need to be the observer that has already seen a certain chain reaction happen over and over and over again. Just let's
Right.
say, for example, stage fright. You know you're going to get the stage fright. How do you deal with it? You breathe from your diaphragm so that your neck doesn't tighten up, because what happens, that shaking of the voice, is because people start talking from their neck, and the neck will tense up in a tense situation. So you go from the diaphragm and you control it. You keep the neck loose. You keep the upper body loose. You tighten up the core and you keep the upper body loose. You will not know how to do that unless you have practiced that before. So I'm in front of a giving a presentation now. Things are getting a little tense. People are asking certain kinds of questions, so on and so forth. I know, okay, cool. Things are getting all little heated over here, but my neck is loose, my shoulders are loose, and boom, I'm shooting from the diaphragm, I'm shooting from the core. The confidence is still there. There's no kind of a cowering that's going on.
Right.
And the only way that I can do that is because I practice. And that, whether you want to call it meditation and so on and so forth, which is another different kind of practice, but practice is super, super key. So ABC, always be closing, right? What are your thoughts on that sentiment? I know you've heard that before. Anyone that's worked in sales before, just since we're talking about closing, and I'm just going to leave the question that open. Like, what are your thoughts on that always be closing thing? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do they mean? What are your thoughts?
Well, always be closing. Let's put that of, think about the payout. Okay, always think about the closing, but of course we don't want to rush through the process, because there are salespeople that are trying to get the close going, but the customer is not sold yet, right?
Mhm.
So be careful with that. But always be closing means think about, start to imagine. There's a power in imagination. Sometimes I would see a customer and I'm already picturing where, I had one of my, when I first started my personal consulting, my biggest contract was at $10,000. This was back in 2004 or something. I thought that was like, I could buy a house with that, right? So, you know, I remember, I was just imagining the guy saying, "Oh, this sounds wonderful," right? And anytime that wasn't the case, I would automatically subconsciously find a way to make that steer in that direction. So he would say, "So how do we update this website daily?" And I would say, "Oh, well, it comes with a CMS, which is a customer management system where you can go in there and make changes yourself." And he would nod, and I'm like, "Oh, he's nodding. That's a good thing. That's a good thing." So they always be close and just keep thinking about, yes, right this way, next, come along. Now you would see here, great. Doesn't that sound exciting? You're just throwing those words that are influencing, that are always makes you sound interesting, right? So, and that's so in your head, think about the customer being, if you're selling software, you said, picture the customer using the software. If you're selling hardware, picture the customer using the hardware. That's why you'll often see in some of those commercials, they'll show the person using the tool because they're subliminally trying to get you to see yourself doing it. So, so that's a closing. That's or one of my favorite moments. Someone was trying to sell me something. Well, it's hard to sell to a salesman because we know when we're being sold to. So he's already putting the product in my house, and it'll run nicely in your dishwasher. I'm like, bro, I haven't bought the product, So he's already closing. He's already picturing the product in my house. Now he's not even talking about me using it. He's talking about me washing it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
So
called
always
talking.
be
Yeah,
Yeah, so
past the
always be
sale.
closing means that just keep thinking about how that, start creating the experience of the product from the get-go. How this is going to transform your life and your workflow, right? So
Hmm.
at that point, you're saying it's in your life. So
Yeah,
by the
it's
time they're
already
signing
there.
that, yeah, when they're signing that contract, it's like, well, this is where we were heading to, right?
Exactly, exactly,
Right.
exactly. So, and young Swift, I'll address your question here. Being the resident introvert in the house, I'll address your question about the whole introverted thing. But definitely being able to project in, and if you go back to selling is about simplicity. It's a video that I made, and I have a playlist on sales, for example, so that you can easily just go in and see the things I have to do with selling, influencing, and so on and so forth, right? Because I'm starting to stack up all these videos now. I'm breaking down into playlists. I mentioned there using the visual. Okay, so okay, I am a construction equipment salesperson. I say, okay, so we're building a wall on the freeway, 60-foot high, 300 foot of wall, right? Each of them now is on their own particular freeway of their imagination, right? And there's 300 foot of wall, whatever. And then we continue to talk about that, the problems that come up with that, so on and so forth. And I keep on going back to that wall,
Right.
right? I'm like, yes. And then, when I'm talking about the problems, for example, yeah, the rebar guys never quite lay out the rebar correctly, right? They're like, yeah, that damn thing, so on and so forth. And then when I'm closing again, and then you refer back to the wall. So that this is where, as you said, this is where we've already been going, right? We've
Right.
been going to the place where you're now using my product on that wall.
That's right.
And the key thing in that particular presentation I was saying is that it is best if it is in their head. In other words, showing a picture of a wall is less effective than your ability to have
Imagine it.
them imagine a
That's
wall,
right.
because it's going to be their wall. Maybe they
Right.
like the walls in a sunny day. Maybe some people like it in a gloomy day. Maybe some people like the freeway with trees on it. Maybe some people don't like the freeway with trees on it, right? That kind of a
Right.
thing. Maybe they like a silver scaffolding or red scaffolding. Let them fill in the details.
That's
That
right.
way it is their own thing. Therefore, all you have to say is, remember that wall, and boom, it comes up in
It
their
comes
head.
right back. Yeah.
Now, the introvert thing, let me answer it this way. It is not you presenting a different personality. It is you presenting that personality that you have when you are by yourself singing in front of the mirror. For example, when you're singing in the shower, okay, there is no introvert way of singing in the shower, okay? Everybody is the same person when they are singing in the shower. not to belabor the point, but introversion versus extroversion mainly has to do with how you recharge yourself. Introverts go into the cave to recharge. Extroverts can recharge by getting energy from people and so on and so forth. That drains introverts. So, point is, you want to be so comfortable, and that goes to my video that I made when I said, be the most comfortable person in the
Person in the
room.
room.
Acclimate yourself to the room, make that room become your shower, is pretty much what I was saying, right? You're used to your shower, you're used to the environment or your bedroom or so on and so forth, and then you can go off and do your thing. Hence, through ever means, that's why I asked you the question about practice, right? Through whichever means, through whichever subjective practice and internal practice and self practice that you do, or role playing and so on and so forth, what you want to do as that introvert is make that sales room, that sales conversation become your shower, and you can project it and you can do all that kind of stuff, and you've already practiced it. And no matter what, there is no excuse. The whole introvert thing always comes out whenever we're talking about sales, because introvert want to go and hide. But I'm the resident introvert here. If I can sell, if I can come out here and do my dog and pony show on YouTube, if I can go out there and sell, give speeches in front of people and so on and so forth, and sell them and pick up the phone and make cold calls, you can do it as well. Okay.
Right.
So the ABC question, I like the way you kind of put that, in the sense that always be closing, always be imagining the close, and have that pull you in. It's almost like you're imagining this future and it pulls you in. And also, you're selling a future to somebody. That's what you're not selling a product. You're selling a vision of the future. I don't care if it's a knife or a phone or a piece of, or some kind of a stationery, paper, that kind of stuff. You're selling the experience in the future of when they do have that thing, how it's going to look on their desk, how it's going to make them feel, right? That's why, again, it is a very emotional aspect of it. Okay, now, can you be good at closing, but not so good at prospecting? Or can you be great at prospecting, great at finding opportunities, great at keeping relationships, but not so great at closing? What do you think about what I just said?
There's an interesting rhythm to that, because the more sales that you get, the more experience you get closing, right?
Okay.
And there was a salesperson that I worked with. She was very good at getting the customer excited, but wasn't good at closing. I had another sales rep that had a difficult time even starting the conversation. And when she started the conversation, she would just overwhelm them, and then they would just be frightened and not want to buy. And so she kind of relied more on the I want to buy, I don't care who's selling to me customer. So what you want to be a little bit of both. You want to be because closing is a continuation of everything that you've been doing prior to getting to closing, right? So and getting the customer in, that's where you start the sale. That's where the door opens for you to come in and influence the emotional state of the potential buyer, because you're, like I rightfully said, you're selling them an experience. That's where you have an opportunity to show them the future, that hey, based on the decision that you made, this is what's going to come into your future after you leave my presence, right? Or in B2B sales, you're saying, hey, this is what your business is going to need. Send this to the person ahead. So that's where you start that process. So, but specifically, are there some people are more comfortable when it comes to closing? Some people aren't as comfortable. But if you know that your charisma in terms of how you start the sale and how you continue the selling process, overcome all the barriers, if you just continue those soft skills, closing is no different. The only difference, I think, with closing is where you really have to understand the terms and conditions, because that's where you have to become somewhat a little bit more logical. And not at this point, the pampering is gone. So in other words, if we're selling this person a car, I have to tell you that for the next 6 years, 5 years, you're going to have to send this amount of money every month. You're going to
this
have
address.
you're going to have to get insurance, on this car, and you're going to be responsible for the repairs, potential recalls. So you're going to have to let all of that go, and it's nerve-wracking if so it's okay, again, as I mentioned, it's okay to feel but that's the part that if you want to be somewhat more comfortable, that's where your comfort must be, because in some kind of sales, there are returns. you can make a sale and the customer wasn't satisfied, or you didn't say something, it puts a bad reputation on you. And some of those sales could come back and you can be deducted in your sales depending on what kind of product or experience or service that you're offering, because they could
Mm-hmm.
be returns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the key is, focus on being the middle, the introduction to the customer, and the relationship, the mini relationship you build with the customer is extremely important, because
Mm-hmm.
there are some sales that you'll do where your job is just to get the customer to feel comfortable, pump them up and get them all excited, and then eventually they connect you with some guy who looks like he wants to go home. I'll give you a quick example. I was working out a business loan for one of my clients, and I got through the first person, the second person, they were excited, and all of a sudden we get this guy there and going, name, phone number, email address, spell that for me. He had no you could tell he hated his job. Okay, hold on a moment while I run the credit, I'll be right back. He didn't ask for me to say sure. He comes back later on, let me transfer you to the underwriter, give him this reference number, you have a pen handy? Like, I'm like, hey, where's the niceness? Where was the? I was
You're
enjoying the
killing,
high
you're
five,
killing
right?
me.
And when I got to the underwriter, he looked like he was ready to go to lunch. Yeah, so I'm gonna send you these documents. You know what? Hold on one second. I've got another call. Like, it's like, hey, what's going on? But they knew that we've got you where we want you. So a lot of times, that process, the introduction, depending on what's being sold, of course,
Mm-hmm.
that also can make a difference. But it's important to have those initial, I just met you, I'm going to make you comfortable, I'm going to make sure I'm attentive and responsive and show that I'm responsible, things like that. Those are key. So if you're going to work on anything, work on that, because you might have a sale where maybe you're not the one that's closing it, someone else is closing it, but you want to leave a good impression so that the job of the closer is already done. Even if the closer has an attitude, the person is so hyped up on you, they're so drugged up by your niceness, they're not even going to notice, or they're going to resist the negative energy. I say negative energy in quote, right? Because after someone's been high-fiving you and calling you sir, yes sir, and so, oh yeah, no problem, for an hour, and so someone go, hold on a second, you do, it stings a bit, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
would be my take. Just it's the start of the sale, the middle of the sale part. That's where you want to make sure you get your skills together.
Shout out to Bernard Riley for the super chat. Bernard Riley in the not the super chat, my bad. For the Cash App, ladies and gentlemen. And Nicer left the link over there. So hit up the Cash App, okay? Hit up the Cash App. This is me trying to close you on the dollars, ladies and gentlemen. So
That's right.
basically, you're saying, or let me say the reason why I asked that question, okay? Because everyone is going to go in there and we're going to need to do everything from the prospecting to the relationship building to the closing and then the post purchase kind of follow up, trying to get referrals, so on and so forth. We're going to need to play in that whole arena. But we need to understand that there are people who are naturally better at task A versus task B. Okay. So if you have a certain kind of a personality, don't be discouraged and think, oh, coffee is for closers. That was the name. That's the name of the title here. And this is a famous line delivered by Alec Baldwin. You can find it. Just Google "coffee is for closers" and you'll see the thing there. Okay. Thinking, oh, I gotta be a closer, or oh, I gotta be a relationship person, or oh, I gotta be a backslapper. That's not me. No, you're going to find something that you're particularly good at, and you're not going to even realize that that's whom you are. Take me, for example, classic introverted type. Okay. You would not necessarily guess what the part of the sales process that I'm good at if you did not know. Okay. But let me tell you, what I am is a fantastic closer. Okay. But when you think about it in a couple of ways, it makes sense. First of all, you mentioned that in the closing part, that's when you need to know the details.
Right.
Okay. So, introvert, engineer type, I got all the logic, all the detail stuff down. I know it all the way, right? I know exactly what's going to be happening, all the technicalities in and out. I know it. Okay. And then why I'm good at, and this is comparatively now, I'm better at closing than the relationship side, also makes sense. I'm an introvert. I'm not going to be the guy that's asking you about your family and so on and so forth, right? There are people who are great at that. Point is, sales is about it's a team effort. Again, we are all going to go in there. We're all going to do some cold calls, some prospecting, so on and so forth. We're going to do all these different things. But over time, we know whom is good at what. I know, like, when I pick up the phone and I'm talking to a client, I don't ask them about their weekend and so on and so forth, because it doesn't come off as natural. But guess what? When I'm with Lauren, and yes, Lauren is literally her name, okay? Lauren in Portland, right? She asks like three questions deep. I'm like, wow, I don't even know how you do that, Lauren, right? No, oh, was that the baseball and the this and that? Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Oh, the new park and whatever. I'm like, oh my God, Lauren, like I would not, I don't even, but when it comes to closing, okay, when it comes to the digging in there and, dodging the bullets, keeping the confidence, doing the song and dance, bobbing and weaving, I can do that all day. Okay, so you would not necessarily think or not necessarily know what you're going to be good at based on your particular personality. But
Right.
trust me, even if you think, oh, I'm an introvert, I don't really want to talk to people and so on and so forth. But closing is a performance. It is an emotional kind of boost. It is something that could be learned. That's why you practice, practice, practice. Now let's talk about this. And you talked about the practice part and this practicing overcoming objections. Okay. How, if you could put it in a general way, or perhaps use examples, how does one overcome objections? Objection could be in the realm of, you know what? I got to talk to this other person. I got to talk to my wife. I got to talk to the CFO. Or it could be, let me think about it. Or we're not making this particular kind of a change right now. That kind of a thing. All these different kinds of objections that you see. How does one go about overcoming that, generally speaking?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand that objectives are normal. They're just normal ways of, sometimes we make, let's pretend that you just got on the freeway. You're trying to get to work, and you're trying to manage your time to see, okay, I need to get coffee. That's the end result in your mind. I need to get coffee, but you're thinking to yourself, if I go to this McDonald's, maybe the line's too long. It's harder to get on the freeway. You're doing all of those things, right? But the reality is that maybe wouldn't have been a problem if you left 20 minutes earlier, right? 20 minutes earlier, it wouldn't matter. You would go there comfortably to whichever McDonald's. But so certain situations create objections or barriers to the sale. So how do I overcome those? I ask questions. You gave a question, says, "Oh, we can't get the software right now. Do you have another software that you're using that's totally taking care of all of your needs?" Well, not really. Okay. Well then, right? It almost exposes. Well then, what are you waiting for? And when you ask that question, then there's another opportunity to ask that question. So, what will it take? What if I told you that you can get the software today and you don't have to pay any money down? We'll let you use it for the next 30 days, and you could just do a side-by-side comparison. All you have to do is give me an email. How does that sound? That sounds like a plan, right? So you overcome those objectives. Why do I keep saying objectives? Are they objectives or barriers? Let me just use the word barrier. Objections. I guess in my 4-hour seminar we were talking about learning objectives, so that's been stuck in my mouth. So you have to bring down the wall by showing them what's behind it. So I don't want to get that new car today. Oh, okay. So you're just going to continue driving this other car, and that's fine. Yeah, I'm going to go drive this other car today. Well, what if I told you that you can drive this car off today, and matter of fact, we have a program. 14 days you can drive the car. So you have to give them the future and simplify it and say, okay, I don't want to do this because I don't have the money right now. Because in sales, you always have there's a go-to option. There's always something that you can do, right? And that's why the car salesman says, let me go to the back and talk to my manager. They're just going to the back to just have a coffee or a drink or something. But the idea is, when I did sales, sometimes they'll say, let me go talk to my manager. I just go to the back, and then some folks are having McDonald's and someone has fries. I just grab some fries on the table, go, oh man, you need to get me some. Oh, yeah, I got this customer, but let me go back out there. Go, yeah, I spoke to the manager. I didn't. Let's be honest. There are times in sales where you're going to make statements that aren't necessarily true, but the goal is you're going to meet the customer's need, and you're not going to lie about the paperwork, right? That's where there's always truth in that area, but they expect you to lie a little bit. Is Verizon the best network? Yes. Or says the Sprint guy. Is Sprint the best network? Yes. They're expected to do that. So without moving that around too far from the question, you overcome those by understanding that they're natural. They're just going to come up. Your job is just to see behind that objective, right? Is it objection, right?
Objection.
Objection. I'm sorry. It's been a long day.
All good.
So your job is to see behind that wall. I can't get this phone today because I don't have the money. Well, based on your payment history, it looks like you could just put the phone on your account. You don't even have to pay a penny. Everything goes on your bill. Oh,
Mhm.
right. Or I can't get it today. Well, I'll tell you what. The promotion ends today. Why don't you just go ahead and take it today? You have 2 weeks. If you change your mind, just bring it back. No questions asked. Okay. So you have to. So it helps to understand the leeway that you have. It helps to
Mm,
understand the options that you have, because if you don't know what options that you have, you're going to, those barriers are going to stop you from moving forward. So your job is just, think of those barriers. They're just like wax, candle wax, and your job is
mm,
to come in there with the heat and just let that wax just
mm,
kind of melt down a little bit.
mm,
They're not brick walls, not by any
mm.
stretch. And you're the one that turns it into a candle with just your approach and your mentality, and start by asking more questions. Say, what would it mean for you if you had this phone in your hand today? What would it mean for your company if the software was, if you were using, how different do you see your workflow? Don't ask closed-ended questions. Oh, so you can't do it today? Guess what the answer is going to be? No.
Yeah.
So you know
Yeah.
so it's
Mhm.
not possible to talk to someone. No, but rather well, what if you could just give me 5 minutes and I can show
Mhm.
you? How does that sound
Yeah.
to you? They're probably going to say that sounds good. Right?
Okay,
So
you're putting a lot on the table, and I feel
I
like I
am.
need to unpack a few of these things for our guests out here. Shout out to Nicer again. Shout out to Land of the Lions, not Lando Lion. Land of the Lions, Abyssinia. Shout out to you. Says that I did sales for a year. I was a sales manager. I was good at it, but it was tiring. Definitely, yes, 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 yes. It is a tiring job. Selling 101 by Zig Ziglar, definitely a good book. It is the classic, right? Zig Ziglar. You gotta go through Zig Ziglar, right? And shout out to Murtala in the house. Murtala A. Murtala Muhammad. Salute to Ike. I'm glad to make the live stream. So let me unpack a little bit of what you said. One thing you said is, and again, to refresh the people, it's about how you overcome objections. Overcoming objections is the hump you need to go over in order to close the sale. And as I mentioned before, there are many sales you're making along the sales process. You may be selling the ability to get an appointment, let's say. Can I get 5 minutes of your time to see this particular person? Okay, you're selling, that is your selling, right? And then
Right.
there's going to be objections to that, right? And you overcome those objections, and then now you're in front of the person. Can I come back with my team to show? And there's objections. So there are many sales, many kinds of objections, but regardless, you want to ask questions. That's
That's
the
right.
important thing. You want to ask questions. That's number one. And then number two, you need to understand that the objections process are an excavation process. You mentioned it as a candle, and you are the heat melting the wax away, candle wax, right? So the objection that they give you, the first objection they give you, is not the real objection. Okay,
90% of the time.
it is not the real objection. Okay, so they say, and you always throw a question back at them. So, for example, I have some closing questions that I have. Okay, I say, okay, well, besides the fact that you've never used us before, is there any other reason why you would not use this product? And they'll go, um, well, you know, it's good in this way and it's good in that way, but we don't. I want to I want to be able to make, monthly payments. I don't like this other contract. Maybe it's a contract versus this. Maybe it's a this versus
Right.
that. And I think we had this conversation before. I simply just overstep it. I don't even pay attention to what they said. It's not like I don't pay attention. I pay attention, but I step over it so I can see what is behind that wall. I say, okay, good. Besides the fact that you cannot get this on a monthly contract, is there any other reason why you would not want this product in your hand? Is there any other reason why you would not want to begin to see the benefits which we just discussed being implemented in your company tomorrow? Is there any other reason other than the fact that, and then they go back and start selling themselves? It is an emotional process. Okay, there is some real reason. Maybe it's because it's a hassle. Okay, people don't like change is the number one objection. But no one is going to sit there and tell you, I'm not going to buy because I don't like change. Right? So, what you're trying to do in the examples you gave, for example, when you said, hey, you can get this phone in your hands right now and walk away with it for 14 days. You can start to use the software right now, walk away with it for 2 months and do a side by side comparison. In other words, you minimize the change
That's right.
that they have to go through. You take down that barrier to entry. You minimize the amount of change that they would have to go through. Okay, that's what my questions are doing. I say, well, what is the thing? Well, besides this, I always use this. Is there any reason why you would use? I also ask the negative questions like, is there any reason why you would? Why would you not consider using X for your project, right? And now they're going to be like, why wouldn't I consider using it? It is super putting them on the spot, but
Right.
not in a way that is so negative, like, oh, why don't you buy my product? But it's like,
It's
hey,
almost empowering.
it's empowering. Like, tell
Right.
me
Right.
why you would not use my service. Tell me why you don't want to use my cleaning service. And then the person has to think like, you know what, really, you know what? Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
You know what I mean? Let's just do it because really there is no real reason other than the fact that I already got a this and a that and the other. So you want to reduce that barrier to entry. You want to make it easier for them. And so basically you say ask questions, right, in order to finding my mouse over here. Ask questions in order to get that barrier down, okay? And understand that whatever barrier that they're putting up is just like wax and you can melt it away. There is something behind it, okay? That is
Right.
not really what the front is, okay?
That's right.
And something about the question about I need to talk to someone else. I always ask, oh, fine. Oh, that's great. It's I need to talk to the CFO. Oh, Steve, the CFO? Oh, yeah. And if you don't know who Steve is, you need to ask, and who is the CFO, by the way? Like, there's that Steve formula. Okay, so that you can then personalize and say, just out of curiosity, okay, because I need to know, I need to be able to learn, and it's just my job, right? If Steve were here, what do you think he would think about this? You see? The kind of thing like, I need to talk to my wife. You're knocking at the door, you're selling Cutco knives door to door, right? I need to talk to my wife. So if your wife were here, what do you think she would say about this? This takes you closer. Not that you know what the answer to this question is going to be, but the point is you want them to move closer and closer towards their real objection.
That's
If
right.
they're putting up the wife objection, say, okay, well, if your wife were here, what would she say? And now you're forcing them to kind of be like, okay, well, I think she would she doesn't want me to buy stuff because I'm always buying stuff. And yeah, but then you can kind of say, hey, you know what? But when was the last time she, had an objection about you buying something? What that tends to do is you're going to see that the last time she had an objection about you buying something perhaps was because it had nothing to do with her and it was wasting money and so on and so forth. But then you can talk about how this is going to be a great thing and it's valuable and it lasts and it's for the family and she's going to be happy with it, so on and so forth, right? That kind of a thing. So another thing I ask, and I'm going on and on about this, but questions are super important, is when was the last time that, and this is even before, because I ask these questions when I start to close, like, when was the last time you guys decided to change your vendor for whatever it is, right? When was the last time you guys decided to change your enterprise software for customer relations, right? And then they have to go back to the process.
The process, exactly.
They have to go back to the process and they start thinking and they have to then start bringing down those walls and those emotions and bringing down the barrier to entry and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So ask questions. Okay. Have you seen enough to decide? Is another one that I ask. In other words, this is a question to get you to the close quicker. If you have a 1 hour presentation, let's say this is a presentation type of sale, every 15 minutes, ask them, have you guys seen enough to make a decision? Don't think you got to go through feature A, feature B. Oh my God. It's crazy. It's crazy how people feel like, oh, now I got to go through this slide and I got to go through this slide. It's like, we are mammals, okay? We are social beings. We don't work. We're not in the world of slides, okay? That's not how it works. You need to be able to say, even after slide 1, boom, so have you guys seen enough to make the decision, or some kind of a version of that question, right? Have you seen enough to make a decision? Is the bare bones level of it. But basically, what would you guys need to see, or what is particularly important to you is what you're trying to find out. Don't worry if you haven't gone through feature A, B, C, D, E. Usually, people only care about one feature. Okay, people may just be buying a BMW because it makes them look good. They don't care about the surround sound
Right.
system.
Or the maintenance.
They don't care about your, your warranty program. All right. They just want to drive down whatever boulevard and look good in the BMW. So maybe that's it. So
Yep.
it is rare that anyone cares about all your features. It's usually one at best. And think about yourself as a buyer. So basically, we have already come to the hour, and I wanted to keep this one definitely down to 1 hour. Let me go ahead and check out the Okay, essentially, you can't be a robot. You got to be creative, says Young Swift. Yes, you need to be able to think on your feet. And I mentioned, in case anyone is wondering, the domain within which sales consist. What does sales consist in? Okay, what is that domain? What is that landscape? It is the landscape of influence and persuasion. And as I mentioned, rising up to the top in any particular endeavor involves two things. One is becoming more strategic, right?
That's
When
right.
you're lower, you're more tactical. And then as you go up, you become more strategic. And one is more strategic, and then number two is more influential.
Influential. That's right.
Yes, the president is selling to the whole country and selling to other countries. The general is selling to his army and selling to the outside. The CEO is selling within and selling without. And he's definitely also more strategic. So whether you think, oh, well, I'm not a salesperson, you are going to get into some kind of a sales position if you're trying to climb higher. It may not be called sales, but generally speaking, the people who climb higher quicker tend to come from the sales, right?
That's
And
right.
it is the kind of profession whereby it doesn't matter. I'm an engineer, for example. Okay, I'm an engineer. I do engineering up till today, up till tomorrow. Okay, I'm running Prometheus Engineering Plus. I do technical sales on the side, so on and so forth. But the selling is what has gotten me able to push my entrepreneurial thing, and also the skills are inevitable. I see it right in any kind of. It is not the technical know-how that is the super juice or whatever. They're pumping out engineers every day. Okay. When you add the ability to influence and the ability to think strategically, that's what we're talking about.
That's
Okay.
the special sauce.
That is the special sauce. And that is it because it's about stacking talents, ladies and gentlemen. You can be the 0.0001% in one thing, and then you don't have to worry about it. You just do that one thing. You're Tiger Woods. You've been playing golf since you were 6 years old, and you're going to be at the top of that. But what percentage of people are that? Very few. Point is, you are at least 10% or 20% in a number of things. If you stack those things, you can go up, and you could possibly even be in a room with a Tiger Woods, right? But you didn't get there by being the 1% in one thing. You
That's
got there
right.
by being top 5% in a number of things. And influence and strategic thinking is a must in this particular regard. Okay. It's not like, let's say, Barack Obama. It's not like I'm sure he wasn't the top law professor or was never going to be like the top number one lawyer or the top number one orator, but he's at least 5% in most of these things. Maybe he's 1% in one of them and so on and so forth. But it's about stacking all these things that then,
Right.
boom, you become the president of the United States, right? So, super important, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to ask this thing now. The last question, okay? Because there are many kinds of closing that are out there. We talked about the presumptive close, the options close, the urgency close, the suggestive close. I want you to kind of mention or delve a little bit into the creation of urgency. You mentioned it maybe in a tangential way, ancillary in an
Mhm.
ancillary way. You mentioned that kind of creating of urgency, right? But can you just talk about that because it goes to that emotional pumping up? Yes, you got to be confident, so on and so forth. But how do you create urgency all through the process in order to get the close quicker? What is your thought? What are your thoughts regarding the creation of urgency?
Um, the creation of urgency it's vital to your selling process because emotions change, right? Um,
Hmm.
Emotions change. Let's just take you're trying to sell to someone a software, and maybe you've been given your presentation. They're feeling good about it. All of a sudden they get a call. The customer, the potential client gets a call from school. Your son's not feeling too well. Well, that
Mm,
sale's gone, right? What
mm,
I mean by that sale's probably not going to happen
mm,
because the son
mm,
kicks in, or my
mm,
grandma. Oh, I just got a call. So who's someone? I'm sure if you've ever been if you've sold anything, you've seen you've been in the middle of a sale. Someone gets a call. Oh my God, I have to go pick up my daughter, or my dog. I have to go pick up my dog. It could be
mhm,
anything, and especially if the customer is not, maybe they haven't been 100% convinced yet, or they're ready to throw their objections at you, and they haven't had an opportunity to do that. They'll find, my dog just coughed and I need to go. So the urgency should be there because um, you should be so good at what you do that 15 minutes into the sale, the customer should be ready. And it goes back to what Ike was saying, that, do you have enough to make a decision? Asking that
mhm.
often, you have enough to make a decision. When I used to work in product sales in Verizon, taking them closer to the cash register, right? Because let's go
Interesting.
over that way, right? Yeah. So it's like we've been chatting for a while. Your head should be pointing to where you want to start signing the paperwork, because
Mhm,
at some point anything can happen.
mhm,
And there are times where you're selling a product, and let's just call it what it is. You know that this product is for this customer. You know
mm,
that maybe perhaps it's the last one. You know
mm,
that they're not going to get this deal anywhere else. So you have a responsibility, and to some extent a duty, to make sure the
mm,
customer does not leave without it, because
mm,
it will happen. They come back and it's gone. And then all of your sales are going to turn into almost bad news. Like, oh, now they're sold out. Great. Now I have to go somewhere else. And the customer is going to say it's your fault. Right. So
mhm,
it's important to look for those opportunities to close, and then look for opportunities where you know that this person is looking for a moment to bail out, but they want to buy it. Like I
mhm,
said, oh, the wife. I had one customer. This is a funny story. I don't know if I told this in our last video. The lady wanted to get a big sale from me, but she couldn't speak English that well. And every time she would try, she would say, she would look up in the sky and look for the word in English and couldn't. And then she says, ¿Se habla español? I went, no, I'm not losing this sale today. So I literally called my ex-girlfriend. Okay. I said, hey, how you doing? How's your family? Hope you're doing well. Hey, look, I just need a favor. I'll tell you what to say, and I'm going to give you the phone. And as soon as I put the phone on there, you can see the customer went like, whoo, and she's blasting all these Spanish out and going on and on. And I look at her body language and she says, oh, see. And I'm thinking, yes, that's a good sign. And she looks up in the sky, she goes, see. And she's going on and on. And it turns out that when I got the phone back, she says, oh, she said that she noticed that she also sees the other services. She wants to get those as well. I'm thinking, jackpot. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I better hurry up because there's another coworker that I have, and he's going to come in there. He usually knows when I'm with a Spanish speaking customer, and he'll come in there and start saying, and he starts talking Spanish to the customer, and the customer want to leave to him. So I was like,
mm.
I'm closing this as fast as possible. So I say, tu firma, por favor. That means give me your signature over here, right? So that when he comes over, that other guy, sales guy comes in, there's, the sales already closed. So you have to think of how fast this, you want to be excited about getting the product, the service, the device
Mhm,
into the customer's hands. Be excited about putting that future that you've been selling in their hands, because it's better in their hands, because when it's in their hands, money comes into your pocket. So
bam,
don't let that money sit. Don't let that money sit in their purse any longer than
bam,
it needs
bam,
to.
bam.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and this is key, and I'll just mention this. I don't have to necessarily ask, which is that you need to get over your hangups about money.
Right.
It's You need to get over your hangups about money. You need to become money motivated.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, when I say become money motivated, I mean break down the barriers and the lies that you tell yourself that you are not money motivated, and get in there, because money is a tool, and
That's right.
get over all those hangups about happiness, because money has nothing to do with happiness. Okay. It's like it's this particular tool that we need in order to transact and exchange with other people. It has nothing to do with happiness. If you start saying, well, it doesn't make you happy, blah, 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 you have done a complete non sequitur. You have done something absolutely illogical. I was talking about digging the holes and selling you shovels. Now we need shovels. And all of a sudden you start talking about happiness. It has nothing to do with happiness. It's about digging holes. It's a
That's
tool.
right.
You don't talk about happiness when you talk about pens and pencils, spoons and forks. It's a tool that you need. Get that tool. Get over your hangups about money. Be money motivated in order to get into this sales game. So this has been an excellent one, and I think that we've kind of stayed within the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me start again, right from the top. Do you want to be inevitable like Thanos, right? You want to be indispensable, invaluable. You want to be able to go from city to city without worrying about having a skill that is transferable in any market, in any sector. What is that skill? You got to learn how to close. You got to learn how to influence people. You got to learn how to get the value out of the marketplace. Get the money out of the marketplace. Be a revenue center. Be a profit center, not just be a cost center. Regardless of what the organization is, non-governmental, non-profit, or for-profit, or maybe it is the government itself. Everyone needs to get value. You need to go to China and close the deal, or you need to go to the next business and sell your software. That's the whole point of the business. Everything else is just help. In other words, the salesperson, the person bringing in the value, is the person that goes out there and kills the mammoth or whatever. Everyone else is just helping bring in the mammoth, chop up the mammoth, distribute the mammoth through the different whatever, package the mammoth. But if the mammoth is not killed, nothing happens. And that's why this is a very invaluable skill. Whether you're a CEO, you're selling to the outside and to your internal organization. You're the president, you're selling to the nation and to other nations. So just a quick thing, and today we were talking about closing, okay? And if I just got to give a basic kind of summary of the conversation, right? I'd ask you about how closing works into that framework of bringing down barriers. And you mentioned that you got to bring down the barrier in yourself. You got to bring down the barrier in yourself, and you need to project the emotion of excitement, because selling is an emotional thing, and buying, I should say, is an emotional thing. It is not, hey, I will give you this argument and my best argument. Oh, now you have to buy. It's like, no one just buys. Oh, I give you a great argument. Now you got to buy. It's like, no, I ain't got to buy nothing, right? You make me buy when you push me in there with a feeling. You make me excited. You project a future to me, a future where this particular pen is already on my desk. That will look great on your desk. This will look great on you. You would look great in that car, that kind of a thing. And those are simplistic kind of things, but you get the idea. And then when it comes to closing, asking questions is super important. Two things you mentioned there. You said that asking questions, and also that those objections are like wax, and you just need to be a flame next to the wax, melting it away, because the real objection is never quite openly stated. The real objection is often something like, I don't like change. 90% of the time is because people don't like change. You don't like change. I don't like change. But I'm not just going to come out there and say it. I don't like change. So you want to get to the point where you're reducing the barriers and they don't see this thing as change as much. Okay. So ask those questions. Cut down and create that urgency. Okay. Don't go to the point where you're going on and on and on and on. Right? Create the urgency. Tell them about, and obviously you understood the sales process. You have increased the pain. In other words, you've kind of shown them the difficulty. And this was a conversation that we had in a previous conversation, right? Where you're talking about, imagine how it would be if you were to just be able to click this one button and this, that, and the other will happen. You're like, oh, so that's you're creating that future, painting the picture of the solution to the problem, because it's all about solving the problem. And once you've created that solution, you create the urgency for it. And then you ask the questions like, why would you not consider using this product? Besides the fact you've never used this before, why would you not consider it? When was the last time you changed the software? What was that process like? Okay. Is there anyone else that, is there any other reason? Or one this is a ballsy one. Okay. And you could literally ask them, like, how much of what I've told you do you actually believe? That's like a nuclear weapon, right? That's like now don't try this at home unless you know what you're doing. You pull this one out when you've projected already a whole lot of confidence and so on and so forth. Shout out to Ramil Amir in the house. Ramil Amir, the big homie in the house. Make sure you guys already subscribe to Ramil Amir's channel. He's the big dog out here in this corner of YouTube. So, but if you have not, make sure you check out his channel. Always putting out good content every day. But The nuclear weapon is this: how much of what I've told you do you believe? Because you're trying to find out. Yeah, let me tell you the end point of this, besides the emotional shakeup, because you need to shake people up emotionally sometimes, right? But the end goal, the logical thing you're trying to do is you're trying to find out what is important to them and what is not. You've talked
That's
about
right.
features and benefits and this and that and this, and they say, well, how much of what I've told you actually believe? You're like, you know what? I don't know about this and that and the other, but the fact that this, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And now you know that. You're like, okay, cool. Well, when can we get this in your hands? My goal, and one thing that I like to say is to the point of always be closing, right? I always like to state my objections up front in the beginning, in the sense that here is what I want to do. And I mentioned that there are many closes. There's the close of I want an interview. There's the close of I want to be able to talk to your CFO, right? And I state it up front. And I say, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to sell you 50,000 pens for all your offices in Milwaukee, right? That's my objective. That is my goal. It's not your objective. It's not your job to buy. It's my job to sell. So,
That's right.
right? That's the beginning of the conversation. And then so that when I come back again and I say, this is my objective, it's not like, oh, where did that come from? I didn't know you were here to sell me. It's like, no, I told you right in the beginning. Always tell them in the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, here's what my objection is. In the first like 20 seconds of any conversation or presentation, I always say what my object. The way I do it is attention, intention, and big claim. That's how I kind of put it down. Attention could just be a hello, right? Or here I am standing in front of you, poised, shoulders back. In other words, something that gets their attention. Now they're paying attention to you, okay? And then you state your intention immediately, okay? I am here to make sure, or I'm here to demonstrate to you how we can save you 50% on all your installation costs, that kind of a thing, okay? That's intention and big claim altogether. You want to make it big, you want to make it bodacious, you want to make it emotional, you want to lift them up, so on and so forth. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I've been going on and on for a while. Any closing thoughts, Aitois, before we close this one out?
I think everything has been said. Just keep your confidence and knowing that, your job is to create the excitement. And the success of your sale depends heavily on that ability to create the excitement. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an introvert or an extrovert. You just have to know that I have to make this more exciting, because it is always an emotional purchase. You will have the few. There are those days, and every salesman will tell you, someone's going to walk in and say, I'm here to buy this, right? They're not here for pitches. As a matter of fact, I had a sale once. The customer walked in, I'm here to buy this, sold it to them. Are you doing today? Good. Oh, okay, cool. Just go ahead and sign here. Initial here. All right. Well, you know the drill, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Like if I'm buying something, my type, I walk into the store. I don't need a salesperson. I'm here to buy that TV. I just picked up a U-Haul, and where do I pay for it? And salespeople don't like customers like me because they don't get to practice on me. But this job is to help salesmen, right?
This is generally true of people that are in sales too. Is that salespeople there are two things going on, because you're generally excited, and like someone that's excited, you can project excitement. Okay, so you're an easy close, but generally it's also because you know what you want, right? So salespeople are the easiest. If you're easy to close on, you probably have some innate talent for selling, and you should look into it. And I will close out by saying this. Recall that we mentioned that there are many aspects of selling, from the prospecting all the way through to the closing. And then in between, you have things such as keeping a relationship. And even after the closing, there's the post-purchase behavior and asking for referrals and following up and so on and so forth. Everyone needs to get into that arena, and we're all going to participate in each aspect of this dance. But you need to understand that there is an aspect that you are particularly good at. So there are people out there who need to prospect and call 10 people in order to close 3. But there's some people who only talk to 4 people and close 3. Okay.
Right.
Now, generally speaking, what happens in a smart organization is you take that person that can is very good at prospecting, that can bring in like 10 prospects. You combine him with the closer type, and boom, 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 boom. Like me, I'm a closer type. I am not a relationship type. I don't care what park your kids played golf or whatever softball this afternoon. I don't care about it, okay? But there's certain other people whom are genuinely interested in these people and so on and so forth, right? But, and I'm not, I'm being stark here. I'm not saying I don't like people and all that, but you get the picture, right? Anyone out there listening, I love you guys, okay? I love you. But basically, when it comes down to that, knowing all the ins and outs, the technicalities, so on and so forth, and being able to ask those tough questions, things that take practice, and boom, 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 being strategic, break down those walls, close, sign, and I'm out. That's what I'm good at. And I would have never thought that I was good at that if I just went with, oh, I'm an introvert. I don't want to do that. But I'm an introvert means I don't want to know about their kids' soccer. But I'll close all day, every day, because it's like doing it. It's like lifting weights. It's just you just go in there and you do it, and you put it down, and you move on.
No maintenance, no maintenance required.
Exactly. And the way I do the because you mentioned also being competent, picking up that phone when they call, and so on and so forth. That is the way I do my relationship thing. That's the way people come back to me. Right? It's not by asking about their softball game. Okay, that's other people's way. I do it by no matter what, no matter when, I'm responding to your text, I'm responding to your call, I'm sending you that information, I am answering your question. Just a high level of competence.
That's
high level of competence, and that's how people come back to me. You have to play to your strengths. If I try to do that softball thing, it'll come off as false, and it'll be very draining to me. Okay, and it'll not really get me anywhere. My thing is super sharp, super competent, go in there, close the sale. If you can't close it, move on to the next. Stay sharp, stay solving their problems, so on and so forth. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, shout out to Young Swift, Nicer, Ramil Amir. Young Swift said, close like Kobe in the clutch. Shout out to Bernard Riley again for the super chat, and definitely shout out to Aitois, aka New Game, for coming once again. Check out the other conversations that we've had. We had one about music. As you know, he's also a very well accomplished music engineer, mixer, masterer, and producer. And
this is my studio. So for
bam, yeah. Ramil Amir over there, he's another studio guy. And check out the other conversations about sales, where selling is about breaking down barriers and also understanding the customer, the 5 buying stages.
That's right.
Problem, shopping, decision, purchase, and then post-purchase behavior.
Correct. Right.
Bam, you see, I'm a good student. I got it.
Right. That's
all right,
right,
ladies and gentlemen, we are out.
On the shore, relentless in the war, the legions in our hearts, shed waters in our balls, the spirit and the flesh, the emotions that arrest, the cerebral will contest, propelling the unrest. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand, stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. With the semblance of a blaze, with gratitude and rage, we touch another page with delirious delight, impervious to light. This vitality and might encourages the flight. Preachers and bandits with means underhanded, the teachers pedantic and lack understanding. So sweep out the sand with the broom in your hand. Stand up, make we burn Babylon. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demons searching. The spirit and the women fight the battle within. Guess I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the wind will fight the battle within. But the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the wind will fight the battle within. Cause I can give the world to you, but the falling of the curtain is for certain. Be careful where you're lurking, demon searching. The spirit and the wind will fight the battle within.
Build shelter, make sure there's room for another. For surely what is mine unto you I will offer. For diligently guarding a citadel and cover. Wait for me by the green hill, my sister out there. You be safe from the blizzard and the blister. The marching will be hard, the mountains will shiver. So wait at the green hill down by the river. The harvest of the year and all the chaff is cast away. Marching then retreating to live to march on. All that the resources are depleting. Guess it's just the price we pay. Emotions they are fleeting and lead many a man astray, tormented by the sword and the vagaries of war. The children of brethren cut down to the floor. Tyrants will freely born and the masses will applaud. All treaties and systems and kinships will fall. Wait for me by the green hill, my brother, build shelter. Make sure there's room for another. Surely what is mine unto you I will offer. For diligently guarding a citadel and cover. Wait for me by the green hill, my sister out there. You be safe from the blizzard and the blister. The marching will be hard, the mountains will shiver. So wait at the green hill down by the river. Everlasting burn, the everlasting light with passion and with verve. We shall tempt the edge of fate tonight. Cannons are blasting, hearts are filled with fire and fright. Weapons are massing, we're building them at higher heights. From depth of the sea to the soaring of the peaks. The children of brethren can't find their release. For vengeance or for peace, because the sorrow and the grief. The wind by the green hill will bring some relief. Wait for me by the green hill, my brother, build shelter. Make sure there's room for another. For surely what is mine to you I will offer. For diligently guarding a citadel and cover. Wait for me by the green hill, my sister out there. You be safe from the blizzard and the blister. The marching will be hard, the mountains will shiver. So wait at the green hill down by the river. Build shelter, make sure there's room for another. For surely what is mine to you I will offer. For diligently guarding a citadel and cover. Wait for me by the green hill, my sister out there. You be safe from the blizzard and the blister. The march reaching will be hard. The mountains will shiver, so wait at the green hill down by the river.